'Twas a week before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, except for maybe Gator. Hi, it's me, Saint Nicky, and welcome back to the Playhouse. Today, I'm going to be reading to you from a book that I wrote based off of one of my favorite comedy shows, I Think You Should Leave. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. In this book, I incorporated every single sketch of I Think You Should Leave from seasons 1, 2, and 3. So if they come out with more, I'll have to write a sequel. Without further ado, Tim Robinson and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Christmas. Written and illustrated by yours truly. Sunday Fun Day. Once upon a time, just a few days before Christmas, Tim woke up eager for the day's festivities. He had big plans for the day, beginning with Sunday Fun Day brunch at Judy's Diner with some little tuna cans. He dressed really sharp with his new hairstyle, inspired by Cranston himself, although it turned out more like dog ears. His favorite T.C. Tugger's holiday top, ugly sweater edition, a knockoff pair of calico cut pants, the originals were always sold out, and a studded leather belt from Caleb Went's Angels and Archways series to tie it all together. On the way to brunch, Tim realized he had no idea how to drive and swerved in front of another car carrying a large number of dirty tables from a comic convention. This caused Tim to crash his hot dog car into Fenton Stables and Horse Ranch. White horses and filthy tables were everywhere. Freddy Krueger was livid. Later at brunch, Tim ordered the gazpacho soup, which scalded his mouth. His team came in 4th place at Family Feud, despite all the extra points given to them for no reason. When it was time to pay, Tim participated in credit card roulette and balked when his card was chosen. After refusing to pay, Carl Havoc, who lived in Egypt for a month, sauntered in and flipped Tim's tray, covering him in the uneaten gazpacho. Chunky showed up out of nowhere and started further wrecking Tim's shirt. Tim decided this was his cue to leave, but had to call the driving crooner for a ride on account of his wrecked hot dog car. The driving crooner was performing original hits by Don Bondarley, king of the dirty songs, but kept forgetting the words. Tim realized he needed to stop by Dan Flash's on the way home for a replacement for his gazpacho-stained shirt. He decided that money was no object and to go for the most complicated pattern he could find. The shirt he chose had a pattern that was so complicated, he figured he should show it off and hightailed it to Club Aqua. It was Tim's lucky night. He got in free at Club Aqua because the bouncer was his shirt brother. After dancing for a while, Tim abruptly left because the Club Aqua zipline broke and Kim Kardashian's head fell off. However, Tim wasn't ready for the night to end. He dipped into Haunted House, but when he tried to get a free drink by saying there was a little Lego in his drink, they called security on him. Wrestler Toilet Truck, former Little Buff Boy, Troll Boy, and former Baby of the Year Bart Harley Jarvis promptly escorted him out. At this point, Tim walked home for a good night's sleep, hoping tomorrow would be better. Moon River Rock Monday. The next morning, Tim put on his new Dan Flash's shirt, even though it was pretty sweaty from clubbing the night before. He topped off the look with a Stanzo brand fedora. They're Stanzos, they're nice. It was the day of the office holiday party, and Tim was excited to give his coworker Tammy her secret Santa gift. He'd been waiting for weeks to say the line, "Santa came early," as he gifted her with an original Tammy Craps doll, one that still has farts in her head. Unfortunately, because of the matching name and the farts in the head, Tammy got offended and demanded the receipt. When Tim handed it to her, she said it smelled like he took a big mud pie and forgot to wipe. Everyone was laughing. Tim tried to recover by sliding his fedora down his arm, but it got caught in his coworker's bike wheel. When he bent to pick it up, Little dice fell out of his pocket, and everyone just kept laughing as he tried to wipe all of the bike wheel grease off his hat and hurriedly put the dice back in his pocket. Tim then went for broke by jumping on the table and pretending to surf, but knocked a water cup over in the process, where it spilled all over his boss's laptop. Tim was in more trouble than everyone now because of the cup. Tim's boss, Barry, hungry for revenge, made it his night's mission to embarrass Tim at the party. Barry spiked the punch with banana-flavored liquor so he could give Tim the nickname Banana Breath. Staged a Garfield-themed intervention after Tim got drunk and mighty sick off banana booze, replaced the office toilet hole with a fart toilet, and hired a Johnny Carson impersonator, who at that price point was allowed to hit Tim all night. They decided to take a group photo, and Tim grabbed a purple feather to be silly. That backfired when Tim puked up his pretty little lunch. Up next was karaoke, always a good way to liven up a party. Tim was psyched to perform some hits from his Q-Zone like Moon River Rock and The Day Robert Palin's Murdered Me. It seemed to work. Amanda, Tim's office crush, even told him he was interesting. But when he got up to do his Blues Brothers routine, he tripped and wiped out. Barbie, a co-worker's dog, used that moment to start humping his head. Tim's ponytail even got stuck in the dog's holiday sweater. His coworkers grabbed a big pair of scissors and sliced Tim's ponytail right off. After that debacle, Tim got permission to go home and lie down so he wasn't beet red for the family holiday photo. On the way, he stopped off for a wig to wear for the photo, but a gorilla on the sidewalk snatched it off before he could even get back to the car. Tim rushed for his emergency Geluitol stash in the glove compartment, but it takes days to get them curls. The photo was as wrecked as Tim's shirt and hot dog car from the previous day. His wife was so steamed, she said that she and the kids wouldn't respect him anymore. It was a tense end to a tense day. Tiny Tim Tuesday. Tim awoke full of magic and wonder for Christmas Eve. He had planned to watch his favorite holiday special, The Night Scrooge Saved Christmas, and eat just chips, like just chips. Skeletrax and his Bone Brigade had just transported through the portal to Ebenezer's bedroom when Tim dozed off. Tim was awakened by a loud squirting sound and rushed into the kitchen to find a guy dressed like a hot dog, squirting mustard on an actual hot dog. After a long Q&A session, including some questions like, "Who are you?" and "What are you doing in my kitchen?" "Why are you dressed like a hot dog?" and any of those little fuckers pop out of the fucking wall and say there's a horse cock in my room or a donkey dick? Tim learned that the man was the ghost of Christmas past, and he was visiting because Tim had wrecked his orgy in a dream. He wasn't actually dressed like a hot dog, but just happened to be wearing a perfectly normal suit in hot dog yellows, reds, and browns. And no, Tim found out, none of those little fuckers popped out of the wall to exclaim about horsecocks or donkey dicks. All this exposition made Tim tired and the hot dog guy irritable. Tim fell back asleep. Tim was awakened yet again, not by a loud noise this time, but by a big, boisterous fluttering of motion and activity. There was someone in his living room pantomiming riding a bike. Tim had so many questions. Who are you? What are you doing? And any of these fuckers ever fucking fall out of the ceiling and have like a big, messy shit or have a dingleberry? Do they ever just like fucking run around nude and you see their big old fucking hairy nuts? The mystery man answered, "Let me paint you a world. My name is Richard Brecky, a.k.a. Jellybean, a.k.a. the ghost of Christmas present. And I'm riding a fucking bike. It's a bike. It's a fucking bike, you scumbag." Before answering the rest of the questions, Jellybean disappeared, leaving Tim more confused than ever. He promptly fell back asleep. Tim was awakened a third time by a loud clang. This time, Tim didn't have to ask. He immediately recognized the Metalloid Maniac from a cartoon he'd seen. Tim did still have some questions, though, and felt free to say whatever the hell he wanted, being in his own house and all. Tim asked, "Why are you here? Is the metal really like your ground?" And, not trying to be funny, not trying to get a laugh, don't want anybody to have the worst day at their job, but do any of these fuckers ever blast out of the wall and have like a huge cum shot? The Metalloid Maniac responded that he was the ghost of Christmas way future, and that the metal was more like his walls. Before answering the most important question, the Metalloid Maniac ripped off his disguise, revealing that he was actually a bone mama in disguise. Scrooge showed up just in the Saint Nick of time to help Tim defeat that bony. Tim was happy about the victory, but disappointed that he never got all his ghost questions answered, especially since that might be the last time he encounters actual ghosts. Oh well, he thought, tomorrow's another day, and Christmas at that. Wild on Wednesday. Tim woke up excited to celebrate Christmas Day. This year it fell on a Wild on Wednesday, so it was extra special. Of course, he woke up to no gifts because he had gotten a tattoo that year, but that didn't dampen Tim's spirits. He was thrilled because this year he was invited to take part in the town's annual Christmas parade. Unfortunately, Tim got sewn in the pants of the Charlie Brown float, making Wild on Wednesday truly live up to its name. He was blown wildly this way and that, to and fro, back and forth, all while hanging from Charlie Brown's pants by a thread, literally. When Tim finally got down, he was enraged and wanted to find the guy responsible. Tim thought, 2 birds, 1 stone. I'll teach this guy a lesson and film it so my wife and kids will respect me again. He texted Brian Cambridge from work a 911 and told him to bring his video equipment. However, when Tim found the culprit, he was just a kid, so Tim only beat him up a little. The kid said, "I'm sorry, mister," with a sad face and a nose so red and busted, it looked like Bozo's dubbed over. Luckily, Brian captured the whole thing on film. Tim raced home to show his wife, who is actually Shania Twain, and kids the footage. Unfortunately, Shania said, "That don't impress me much." His kids took their cues from her, and they all decided to go spend Christmas at her mother's place in Canada, leaving Tim alone and sulky. He drank wine until his mouth was purple and was lulled to sleep by the festive sounds of the latest Santa Claus Detective Crashmore movie. "Eat fucking bullets, you fuckers. You fucking suck." Merry fucking Christmas, thought Tim, as visions of the fresh-faced Sergeant Wilkes danced in his head. That's a Nude Egg Thursday. Beep, 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 beep. Tim's alarm clock blared loudly. He rushed to work so he could try to get to the next level on his new computer game, the Segsy Dozen. The goal seemed to be to feed the simple anthropomorphic egg on screen from a carton of eggs. Tim deftly moved his computer mouse back and forth, feeding egg after egg, until his boss Barry came in. Before Tim had a chance to apologize again about the cup, the computer announced, "You won," and "You're now looking at a nude egg." The egg started doing a sexy striptease and showing its smooth butt, balls, and back. While Tim found it delightful, Barry found it disturbing and said he was pushing lunch to deal with the situation. Tim argued that you should be able to look at a little porn at work and you can't push lunch. When that didn't work, he decided to just leave for the day and get lunch from his favorite fast food chain, Trufani's. But instead of ordering his usual sloppy steaks, he decided to try a pay-it-forward prank he'd seen on Carl Havock's hit show, Everything is Upside Down, and ordered 55 burgers, 55 fries, 55 tacos, 55 pies, 55 Cokes, 100 tater tots, 100 pizzas, 100 tenders, 100 meatballs. They don't look like little pieces of shit. 100 coffees, 55 wings, 55 shakes, 55 pancakes, 55 pastas, 55 peppers, and 155 taters. The joke was on Tim, though, because a group of bikers were on the receiving end of the prank. He had to outrun them, which was easy to do because they didn't have motorcycles or any transportation of any kind, and decided to head back to the office. Tim thought maybe the large amount of food would put him back in everyone's good graces. Unfortunately, the very hungry caterpillar had taken bits and bites out of all the food, and his co-workers continued their campaign of disdain. After lunch, Tim got more bad news. His mother-in-law, whom Tim loved very much, to the amusement of his co-worker who flipped a bottle at Tim to make him flinch, had died. Tim jumped on the first red-eye to Canada for the 430-mile trek and met the strangest adult man who wouldn't stop crying like a baby. He whined and did baby talk and everything. Oh, well, Tim thought, at least I don't have to go to work in the morning. And then, you're relieved you don't have to go to work in the morning because your mother-in-law's dead? What the fuck is this world? Funeral Friday. Tim awakened in a somber mood and reunited with Shania and the kids for the funeral. Tim performed his mother-in-law's favorite tune, Friday Night, to the further embarrassment of Shania. The organ player, New Joe, played a rousing rendition of He Layeth on High about a big baby duck who gets his head caught in a stewed tomato. To add insult to injury, while Tim served as pallbearer, a coffin flop situation happened. Corncob TV happened to catch the whole debacle for their new show, Coffin Floppier. At least she wasn't nude. On the limo ride over to the reception, Tim realized he forgot to bring the hot dip or something and would be showing up empty-handed. A hand with a Super Bowl ring repeatedly popped out from behind a black partition in the limo and grabbed from Shania's ice tray. She was getting extremely pissed. On top of that, Shania was concerned about getting to the reception late because of the coffin flop ordeal. When Tim bent his wrist to show her the time, about 300 springs popped out of his watch and into her hot tea. That didn't help the situation one bit. Tim realized TK Jewelers is a scam and made a mental note to have the watch serviced upon his return home. That night, Tim decided to reconnect with his old University of Toronto pals while he was in town. There was Mike, group leader, the friend with the best friend group, all perfectly orchestrated by Mike. There was Barch Barley, the friend who spent all night glued to his phone. There was Jason Schwartzman, star of the movie Rushmore, the friend who spent all night talking about his kids, even though Tim did wild stuff so that he wouldn't talk about his kids an ounce. There was Doug, owner of Tasty Time Vids, the friend who paid people in Arby's. There was Ronnie, the friend who was just there for the zip line. Ronnie also slept with Shania while she was dating Tim in college, but Tim didn't hold that against him. There was Roach, the pothead friend whose mom ate puke to win him a backpack. He always says he's going to drive to meet the gang, but then sends text around midnight saying, "Hell no, no way, dude. You live like so far. Come to me." Lastly, there's Tim, star of this tale, the friend who is supposed to stay the night but never does, even though he says he will. Shortly after the poker game ends, Tim takes a Greyhound and heads the 430 miles back home so he can sleep in his own bed. Slicked back Saturday. After the best night of sleep he's gotten all week, Tim woke up refreshed and ready to tackle the day. His hair was coming in nicely from the Gelutol he took a few days ago. He slicked it back in his favorite style and decided to cap off a rough week by doing something he's wanted to do for a long time: get his ears pierced. His wife and kids were still giving him the silent treatment, and Tim needed that boost of confidence that only freshly pierced ears can give. He headed to the local mall and first stopped by TK Jewelers to file a formal complaint and get his watch repaired. Then Tim headed straight to Claire's, where he had to first watch a 2-hour and 45-minute ear piercing video, To Pierce or Not to Pierce, before meeting the most beautiful piercer he ever laid eyes on, named Franny. Her short dark hair and bright blue eyes mesmerized and intrigued Tim. He decided to go for it. After all, who wouldn't want 2 wives? It would be better. Tim asked Franny out for that night, and to his delight, she said yes. Tim picked Franny up at 7 p.m. on the dot, and after a quick meal of sloppy steaks, a hamburger, and fully loaded nachos, that was only made slightly more awkward by Tim dumping water on his steak, eating the entire burger, and pretending there was a rule about the nachos, they headed to a special edition of the Colgate Hour with guest Ray Donk, king of the tuk-tuk sound, who would be performing a magic act. At the venue, Tim continued to embarrass himself by forcing the door to push open, even though it was a pull door. Franny appeared to take it all in stride. When Tim got called up to be the magician's assistant, Franny squealed in delight. Unfortunately, Johnny Taco stole all of Tim's lines. Johnny Taco then proceeded to dance with Franny at the after party and flip her 3 times. Johnny Taco added salt to Tim's wound by saying the infamous line, "Triples is best." The joke is on Johnny Taco, though, because Tim went home with Franny. They made love all night, and when Tim drifted to sleep, he thought that things are finally starting to turn around. He had some wins this week. He got a really complicated shirt from Dan Flashes. He finally beat the Segsy Dozen. He nailed karaoke at the office holiday party. He defeated a bone mama. He reconnected with some old friends. And Shania would come around. She always does. On top of that, he has brand new shiny earrings and a brand new shiny chick. A new chick. A new chick. Tim jolted awake. He sat up straight in Franny's bed and looked around. He was surprised to discover a large black jacket and pants strewn over the chair and a bowl full of neck bolts by the bed. "Oh no!" Tim screamed. "I think I just slept with Frankenstein's chick!" Murder Sunday. The birds were chirping. Tim woke up in Franny's bed and looked around. The jacket, pants, and bowl of bolts were all gone. Phew, thought Tim, it was all a dream. But who is the dreamer? Tim got up to brush his teeth while examining his new earrings in the mirror. Wait a minute, those aren't earrings. It wasn't a dream. Tim smashes his face into the mirror and maniacally repeats, "How's Franny? How's Franny? How's Franny?" Stay tuned for Chapter 2, The Black Lodge, Doppelganger Adventures of Tim and Mr. C. Good night, folks, and happy holidays. Follow Nicky's Playhouse on socials so you don't miss a second of the fun. Find me on Patreon at Nicky's Playhouse. Support Nicky's Playhouse by donating to Venmo. Feel free to leave a note in the comments if the donation is for something specific. Maybe you'd like to buy some treats for Gator or costumes for Bonita. Monetary support allows Nicky's Playhouse to continue growing, changing, thriving, and making delightful content for your viewing pleasure. Find me on Instagram at Welcome to Nicky's Playhouse and Gator at GatorBoyPup. Comment, like, and share with friends. You know you want to invite them to the Playhouse. Finally, you might want to check out the Nicky's Playhouse wish list. Anything purchased will be featured on future episodes of the show with personalized shout-outs. Stock the Playhouse full of whimsical and practical items, such as beads for the bead strand, tattoos for Shotgun Nicky's fake tattoo parlor, film for the camera, books and movies to review in future episodes, and decorations for my themed tree. Thanks, y'all.